welcome back, welcome back. This is still part B, but this is going to be activity 4. This is what the template looks like when you open it for the very first time. Now it says use these section headings below to structure a response for each evidence item. So you don't actually have to create anything. It tells you exactly what to use. Now, Now, after that, it also says, after all the evidence items, provide an overall conclusion. What that means, I know I have 6 pieces of evidence, right? So I'm going to copy this table. Let me come down here and paste it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? At the end of this, I'm going to have a section called maybe overall conclusion or final conclusion or justification or whatever it is. You're going to have a conclusion at the very, very end. Here I have evidence item and I have number 1 and I say Balginder's account. This was taken directly from the exam paper. Method of acquiring evidence. So how did I get hold of this evidence? Quite simply, Balginder made some notes and he gave me the notes. So you can shorten this, you can extend it. I wouldn't go too detailed into method of acquiring the evidence for something as simple as this. So I simply said Balginder made notes and provided me the notes he made. Simple. He gave me a notebook. It could have been a Word document. It could have been an email. Really doesn't matter. In your one, you might have to specify because they didn't specify here. I just said provided me the notes himself. That's it. Evidence detail. So what details did you pick up in the evidence? There was quite a bit in this one, but I didn't want to go too detailed because this was essentially just an overview of everything else. So I don't want to go too detailed for this one, as I will have to go more detail for the actual pieces of evidence. What Balginder's done here is he's essentially given me a timeline, dates, times, people that were possibly involved, companies that were involved, so on and so forth. So I've said for evidence detail, Balginder's evidence or account gave an overview of the events which took place. He detailed the dates and times which the incident took place. He also gave an account for all the missing items, as well as highlighting which other pieces of evidence were present and maybe were present and useful. So sorry for me spreading stuff out like this. When I have stuff like this squashed together and I try to read it, it really hurts my head and I'm not able to read it properly or even type properly. So I have to spread things out. I think if you are like that in the exam and you need to space things out, I have to space things out like this or it just won't work for me. If you need to do that in the exam, in my estimation, in my opinion, that should be fine. Once you have the same headings, once you have the same information there, you should be fine. So don't think that you have to stick to everything being jumbled together. Feel free to spread them out if it does help you. Evidence reliability, I would say very reliable. This is simply his account of the facts. Everything he has said is easily verifiable. So everything that he's given me, I can go and confirm with other people. For example, the security team, the restaurant upstairs, the recruitment office downstairs. He was the one who hired you or hired me to help him assess the threat which has occurred. There is no reason for him to withhold any information or lie. That's, again, an assumption I'm making that he didn't do this himself, but there's no evidence to suggest that he did. So for conclusion for this particular one, not the overall conclusion, you will still have to go in and do an overall conclusion for everything. So this is just for my item 1. I've said overall, there should be a comma here, feels like. This piece of evidence was useful as it allowed one to quickly gain an understanding of what took place. I was quickly able to state the dates and times of important events, I guess it was it, as well as the number of items which were taken and for some of the items when they were taken. Because I remember that the laptops and the keyboard and the mice, they weren't sure when those went missing, but they were sure when the phone and the laptop went missing. Another thing I could actually add here is that based on this, just this basic information here, it is unlikely that people got into the main offices. It is more likely that they only went into the open meeting room where the laptop was left. So I'm going to say it is likely that the thieves only accessed the main meeting room where the phone and the laptop was left, as it would not make much sense for them to leave so many computers behind if they actually came to steal computers, if they came to steal, let's say, electronic devices, because there might have been tablets, laptops, I don't know, I'm just assuming here, electronic devices, right? So that's what I'm going to say for that. And final part is evidence. Yeah, that's it actually. So that's going to be for that one. I'm going to do maybe two more, and hopefully this is detailed enough for you guys. And then I'm going to do the final conclusion, which shows you how to do the overall conclusion for everything that we've said so far. And for example, something like this, I'm most likely going to mention that in my final conclusion. So you will have some repeats, but it won't be exactly the same text, and I'll try to give more context there. This one is a bit more detailed, and this is evidence item number 2, summary of a meeting with the Ed Excelsior House Management Company. Method of acquiring evidence. I say these were meeting notes created by Baljinder and given to me. When he was obviously in the meeting, he made notes on his tablet, paper. Again, it doesn't really matter what he made the notes on. He provided me with notes that he obtained from the meeting. Evidence detail. Maybe I didn't explain this one properly before. Evidence detail could mean a few things, but I think, well, it should mean what you've gotten from the evidence itself, just a shortened form of everything that was said in the evidence. Because when you go back to the evidence, I think it has like 4 massive paragraphs, and I've essentially whittled it down to what these are. So I've said multiple parties attended the meeting from different companies within the building. Information was given about the trustworthiness of staff hired by EH. They are paid more than the average, and as a general rule, staff are loyal and staff turnover is low due to wages and working conditions being better than other similar jobs in the area. This one was a bit wordy, to be fair. I could have easily cut that down to about 2 sentences, but let me move on. Say pickpocketing was rife on the Friday night. Rife just simply means it was happening quite a bit. Pickpocketing was rife on the Friday night when the party was being held. The evening was very busy. As a result, CCTV footage was not very useful. Once extra staff was present, there was a reduction in number of thefts. I'm guessing that's supposed to be thefts, and the number returned to normal essentially. So let's just say normally there's like 1 or 2. Or on this Friday night, there might have been like 20. And then once more staff, more security staff was added, it probably dropped back down to 1 and 2. The recruitment agency had thefts as well as BCTA. So it wasn't just my company or the company that you are with that had thefts. So the recruitment agency had thefts as well. Similarly, only small electronics were taken from the reception area and there was no forced entry. So most likely they had access somehow and they could only take small things maybe. There were a number of phantom payments, let me remove that, taken from people's accounts from the same event. So evidence reliability, this evidence is very reliable. The source of the evidence might not be as trustworthy as there are many moving parts and multiple people and companies involved. But overall, I would say very reliable because it's coming directly from the source. And again, most of them probably have no reason to lie. EH is probably the only company I'm feeling a bit iffy about because they wouldn't come out and tell you, oh yes, my cleaners are thieves. We've caught many of them before. I mean, what they're saying again is easily verifiable, but again, you don't want to trust them 100%. For conclusion, I have a few points here, a few bullet points. I've said EH claims that people are loyal as they pay them more. Conclusions, I say EH claims that people are loyal as they pay them more, that which might actually be the case. However, this does not leave them out. The fact that someone from the cleaning or security staff could have been a part of the entire incident. Okay, I think I messed that English up there quite a bit, but essentially, even though they've said that, oh, my team is really good, we pay them more, so they should be happy, that might very well be true. That might very well be true, but it might also be true that there's going to be that one bad apple, that one person that sees something and think, oh, I can get away with this relatively easily. It's possible they could also be the people that help the other people to steal people's details, to get the cards, to break in. We don't know at this stage. I'm just giving you the reasons why I've said these things. And I've also said only small electronics were taken from both BCTAA and the recruitment agency. This gives the impression that the thieves could not get access to other areas, or they could not take larger items as that might have aroused suspicion. So when you're going to steal, obviously you can't go and take the desktops and the mainframe, well, the servers and everything. You're going to want to steal small things, laptop, phones, tablets, and go quickly. Phantom payments gives the impression there were contactless devices being used to tap or scan popular areas in order to steal money from bank accounts. When I say popular areas, I mean people here in the UK, America, wherever, they normally keep their bank cards either in the side of the bag for females, the side of their purse for females, in men, their back pockets where their wallets would be, the front pockets where their wallets would be. So someone in a very busy crowd could simply come up to you have that device in their pocket or their hand, scanning, 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 and you wouldn't even know because it's a busy night. People are bumping past you. You're not even thinking twice about it. Once you have your stuff, you think you're good. This was most likely deliberate as multiple people reported it, and when checked, there were no errors in the system. So the phantom payments was probably something that was done deliberately, because they did mention that these things do happen sometimes when there's an error in the system, but they did check there were no errors in the system, so this was most likely someone trying to do this specific thing. Just to let you guys know, I'm very tired. I'm really sorry it's taking so long, but this is the last one I'm going to do. This is evidence item number 3, annotated door access control logs. So let me zoom in. Method of acquiring this evidence. The logs were taken from the door entry system. Logs are kept of people entering and exiting the areas 24/7. So this is always running. So this tells me it's an automated system. Nobody needs to stand there and press a button. It's simply on all the time. And when you tap your card onto it, it does what it's supposed to do, which in this case, we don't really care about that just yet. Evidence detail. Now this is quite long, so my apologies if I go overboard. The door control system was most likely accessed, and the data from the dates given were copied. So you set a start date and an end date, and you only copy that information you need. The system uses near field communication, allowing for cards to not make physical contact with the readers. The logs shared was only for the 19th floor, shows who has access and who does not, along with their movement through access points. So bear with me, I might repeat a few things because I'm really tired, so I'm really sorry. If I repeat something and it doesn't make sense, obviously just skip that. The categories of information being held were log number, card number, date and time, action, so it's going to be in or out, and notes. The log showed a clear pattern of users entering and exiting areas normally and their allotted times. So if someone was allowed to enter the building, so for example, the security guards are allowed to enter 24/7 because they have to walk around, they're fine. If an employee whose office closes at 5 p.m. is trying to get into the building at 11 p.m., it's going to flag something up. There is limited access and semi-unlimited access. Now this I just created myself, but I did explain it. Limited access allows people to try to only enter and exit at certain times of the day that's supposed to be at. Semi-unlimited access allows those with permission to enter and exit at any time. There is, however, an alert when they do so outside of the normal time. So again, you're a supervisor, you can enter and exit at any time, but again, your office closes at 5 p.m. Why are you here at 9, 10, 11 p.m.? You can still enter, but it's going to flag up on the system that John Brown entered the building at 11 p.m. even though his office closed at 5 p.m. so that when we're going over stuff like this, because it could potentially be hundreds of people going in and out of the building, it would be easier to identify. So I have here card number, and I have 4 card numbers. It says correct 19th floor card, but time limited, so this person was not allowed in. This card number was card for 18th floor. This person was not allowed in. Card for 19th floor, so the correct card, but again time limited, so they were not allowed in. And the final one was the correct card, senior management 24/7 access. Maybe I should have explained this a bit more. So these are the cards that flagged up on the system for some reason, and these are the reasons why they flagged up. Evidence reliability. Now I have 2 answers for this, so bear with me. This one might be a bit controversial, but hear me out. Somewhat reliable. Annotated meaning there was some evidence. This is normally done to add more information or to reveal context. Now, when someone says, I'm going to annotate your work or your document, that simply means that they get hold of your document, they add a few notes to it, and they give it back to you or they pass it on to someone else. That's what could have been done here, but again, I might be reaching a bit. And I said, as the CCTV was not usable, there is really no way to know if this evidence is intact. That's one way to look at it. Or you could say the logs are very reliable as they were produced by an automated computer system, which is not known to have any faults, any issues whatsoever. It's been working perfectly fine so far. So why would we not trust it now? That's essentially what I've said there. So 2 ways to look at that. I would more say this one, but just make sure that when you're looking at the evidence, if it looks a bit dodgy, you can say it looks a bit dodgy. All right, so conclusion. So this again, just for this part, the conclusion just for the third one I've done here. There is clear evidence of 4 cards which exhibited some odd behavior which was flagged by the system. There were a total of 4 attempts to access the 19th floor. The first 3 failed and the fourth worked. This indicates the thieves used a trial and error approach as they were not sure which cards would work. The near field communication, or NFC, used in the access cards is similar to those used in contactless bank cards, contactless phones, and so on. This gives the impression that the thieves use a device or numerous devices to clone both bank cards and access cards. Or, I have another one here again, I try to give some context when possible, or at least clone the access cards and take some payment from the bank cards. There is a machine, a known machine, where people actually walk around on trains and buses and they simply come close to your back pocket or your wallet pocket or your purse pocket and they tap that, or they bring that device relatively close and it takes payment from your card. And because contactless is automatically allowed once you get within, let's say, 10-15 centimeters of a device, it just takes money off your card. And that's a known thing that was happening a few years ago. So other companies now, they actually started making wallets that block that near field communication, so it's not possible to do that anymore. It's still being done, but not in higher numbers, not in as high numbers as they would, as it was being done before. All right, it would have been useful to get the logs from the 18th and the 20th floor as well to see if there were any abnormalities there. This would have been very useful because those people might have used those same cards down there, and this would have definitely told us whether this was a trial and error thing or not. Now, my final conclusion is a bit over the top, but let me go through and try and give some context again. This is the final one anyway, so that's why I just try to go all out. If I repeat something, my apologies. Very tired. With the evidence available, I would theorize that the cards were copied using some form of cloning device and used to gain entry to the BCTAA office. Before I go any further, keep in mind this final conclusion is not linked to any one piece of evidence. This is the final conclusion for activity 4. After this, you're essentially done with activity 4. Well, you're done with activity 4 to be fair. All right. None of the users mentioned their cards being missing, which gives the impression they were not stolen, not stole. Even though there were pickpockets present at night, the same or a similar form of wireless cloning device could also have been used to clone cards or to take payments from customers' cards. I've said that at the top before, but again, this is the final conclusion. When someone reads this, they're going to get my overall impression. They actually probably don't need to read everything else. The final conclusion will give someone an overall gist of what I think. And I've said in my next mini paragraph, in my estimation, the thieves made copies of multiple cards before going to try and access the 19th floor BCTAA office. The logs show 4 access attempts within a 1-minute period, which indicates the thieves tried different access cards to see which one would work. All right. I suspect that once the thieves entered the office, they only went for small electronics, as this would be easy to conceal and exit the building without raising any suspicion. Let me just do this, sorry. Once inside the office, they did not need to make use of any of the cards again, as the doors open from the inside. Remember, they told us in the brief thing, in the client brief thing, that once you're inside the office, you don't need to use the card again. You simply press a button and it will open the door. The thieves could have gained unauthorized access to the recruitment agency in the same manner. As the logs were not provided for that floor, it would be impossible to determine if they were robbed before or after BCTAA. One thing is common amongst the robberies. They only stole small electronics from both BCTAA and the recruitment agency downstairs. I do not believe that any of the BCTAA staff, cleaners, or securities were involved in this incident. They would have known who senior managers are, target them, and gain access to their access cards. It is clear that random workers were targeted and their cards were used to try gain access. This can be seen from the thieves using the clone access cards of the 18th floor worker to try and access the 19th floor. Quite simply, on the log it showed us that one of the, let me scroll up here, I think it is here, this was for an 18th floor worker, so this would not work on that floor anyway, but they tried to use it and obviously it didn't work, so they just tried another card. But that tells me, or that tells us, that the person who is doing this didn't get any solid intel, or they don't know anything at all. Overall, this seems like a simple snatch and grab operation. If it were more sophisticated, more equipment would have been taken, but possibly, again, I'm reaching here, more equipment would have been taken, and they would have maybe tried to access network equipment to be able to cause more damage. So, for example, they would have maybe plugged something into the switch to try and send all the data that goes through the switch to them. They would probably try and plug into the server to copy everything off or to send the data to them. They would have probably tried to steal more PCs or plug something into those PCs so they know everything those people are typing. I mean, they stole a phone and a single laptop versus stealing maybe half a dozen to a dozen to 2 dozen computers in an office. So this was my activity 4. Sorry if I did a bit of repeating, but hopefully that was useful, and good luck.